Welcome to our latest news update. Today we'll be discussing some of the most talked about news pieces from around the world. First up,
Simon Pegg reveals his struggle with alcoholism on the set of Mission Impossible. Next,
Seth Rogen expresses his concern over the WGA strike. Moving on,
a classical musician is forced out of his London flat due to noise complaints. Then,
Dakota Johnson apologizes for sexually harassing an interviewer. In other news,
Ed Sheeran credits Eminem for curing his stutter. Lastly,
YouTuber Trevor Daniel Jacob pleads guilty to intentionally crashing his plane for online views. Now that we're all caught up, let's get started. Simon Pegg reveals his struggle with alcohol addiction while working on Hollywood film sets in the early 2000s in a BBC Radio 4 interview.
Pegg admits to becoming very sneaky to hide his addiction and describes how it took over his life.
The actor and writer realized he was a depressive alcoholic despite his successful film career. Pegg's mental health problems began with teenage depression and resurfaced unexpectedly in 2006 while working on Mission Impossible 3.
The birth of his daughter in 2009 forced him to admit his dependency and seek recovery.
Pegg also discusses his relationship with Tom Cruise, his co-star in the Mission Impossible films, and how he teases him about his fame. Well, it looks like Simon Pegg wasn't the only one keeping secrets on set. Seth Rogen is now very distressed and disturbed over the WGA strike. But we all know he's just upset he can't use his favorite weed puns in his scripts anymore.
Seth Rogen, star of Apple TV Plus sitcom Platonic, criticized the lack of transparency surrounding streaming platform viewership ratings in a red carpet interview with IndieWire.
Rogen expressed concern that streaming services are being secretive about their profits and how much they pay creators.
He also voiced support for the ongoing Writers Guild of America strike, which has led to discussions about the use of AI in TV writing.
Rogen called the prospect of AI writing TV shows horrifying and expressed skepticism about its ability to produce quality content.
He also criticized studios for driving down wages and praised labor unions for advocating for fair treatment of workers. Rogen's collaborator Judd Apatow speculated that studios may have anticipated the strike and have a planned end date, but expressed concern that business interests may be slowing progress towards a resolution.
Well, speaking of distress and disturbance, it looks like Seth Rogen isn't the only one feeling the heat. Our next story features a classical musician who was forced out of their London flat due to noise complaints. Looks like they won't be playing any more concertos in that building.
Musicians are facing a postcode lottery of noise complaints, according to industry leaders, after a member of the classical chart-topping choir Medieval Babes was handed a noise abatement notice for playing music in her flat. Fiona Fay, a singer and multi-instrumentalist, was told to cease making any more noise from the property in the form of playing loud music, or face a fine of up to £5,000 for breaching the notice.
Faye is due to start learning new parts for gigs with Medieval Babes next month, something she said would be impossible under the notice.
The rules on noise are too unclear and leave too much to the discretion and judgment of environmental health officers, according to Faye, who has started a petition calling for protection for the right to play musical instruments.
The Musicians Union warns that its members face a postcode lottery when it comes to noise complaints, with different councils and individuals handling complaints in different ways.
The Independent Society of Musicians helps about half a dozen musicians a year deal with noise complaints, which rose for a while after the pandemic lockdowns.
From classical music to Hollywood hijinks, it seems like noise complaints aren't the only thing causing a stir these days. Dakota Johnson apologized for sexually harassing an interviewer during an interview with Leslie Mann. The incident occurred during an interview about the movie How to Be Single.
Johnson and Mann allegedly egged each other on and asked the interviewer to remove an article of clothing.
The interaction started with some flirting over the interviewer's socks. Some viewers accused Johnson of sexual harassment.
Years later, Johnson apologized to the interviewer during a subsequent interview for the movie Bad Times at the El Royale. From sexually harassing interviewers to curing stutters, it seems like celebrities are always finding new ways to make headlines. Speaking of which, Ed Sheeran recently revealed how he overcame his speech impediment by rapping along to Eminem. Ed Sheeran had a stutter as a child, which he developed after undergoing laser surgery to remove a birthmark from his face.
Despite attending speech therapy, it was rapping along to Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP that cured his stutter. Sheeran's uncle gave him the album when he was 9, and he learned it back to back to back to back. Sheeran and Eminem have since met, and the rapper knows Sheeran's story.
Eminem even asked Sheeran to play Stan with him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Sheeran was recently cleared of copyright infringement allegations and may now turn his attention to country music.
From one musician who found a cure for his stutter to another who crashed and burned for views, it seems like the internet will do anything for a good beat. YouTuber Trevor Daniel Jacob will plead guilty to a federal charge after destroying the wreckage of a plane he purposefully crashed to gain views.
Jacob admitted to planning the crash in a video he made to promote a wallet, and later got rid of the wreckage to hinder federal investigators from probing the crash site.
He agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of destruction and concealment with the intent to obstruct a federal investigation. Jacob never intended to land the aircraft, and planned to eject from the plane during the flight and video himself parachuting to the ground in his airplane as it descended and crashed. He put up several cameras in different parts of the plane, and took with him a parachute, video camera, and selfie stick.
Jacob admitted in his plea agreement that he intended to make money through the video, and lied to federal investigators after submitting an aircraft accident incident report.